Hello, and welcome to People Keep Dying, the podcast where we talk about how people die. All the ways people die. I'm your host, Stephanie.
And I'm Angela. And if you can't tell, we haven't done this in a while.
It's been a while. I'm surprised I made it as far as I did. What you guys don't know, but we know, is that Angela and I just came off a 1-month vacation.
Yeah.
Well, Angela was off in Asian lands.
In Korea and Taiwan.
Yeah. And I was still
working away back at home
in the North American lands. Because we've been on the break, I'm going to be paraphrasing my story. It's going to be really short, really quick, really sweet. I hope so, at least. It is what it is. It's an antiquity. It is antique. It is American. And yeah, so we're going to get into it. So back in the early 1690s in Salem, Massachusetts, they would experience what is, my opinion, a truly black stain on American history.
The witch trials.
The witch trials. The Salem Witch trials. And I'll give you like a short little rundown of like what actually happened in case you didn't know. And like I said, I'm paraphrasing.
You didn't have to read the Crucible for some reason. And
yeah, if you didn't have to read the Crucible or watch the movie, or like just don't know anything, here we go. So basically one day back in February in 1690, a group of small girls were having like a sleepover and supposedly started having these like weird epileptic fits and what have you, and complaining about having pain, and they were like, it's witchcraft. And then other girls in the town, all young girls, also started having the same affliction. Mm-hmm. And so the town basically like goes crazy because it's the 1600s and witches are, a big deal. And apparently there's witch inquisitions going on over in Europe. And we're at the height of like Puritan life, and like you can't do anything with like Satan, and super, super religious people had come here. So the town's losing their shit, and they're like, who's doing this to these poor white girls? Like these poor young white girls. And then the three girls were like, it's these women. And they started accusing these three strange women who basically like they weren't like well kept. They kind of were a little raggedy, mostly old.
How I see my future.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be
It's how a lot of people will see their futures.
Realistically.
As haggy and old. And the two of the women were like, we're not witches. Like, this isn't us. We didn't do anything. I'm just like a beggar woman on the street. I don't even know these girls. But then this one lady was like, I'm a witch, and I signed my name into the book of Satan, and I saw their names there too, because they probably would have gotten away with it, maybe, if it wasn't for this lady. So yeah, she ends up going on trial and brings these other two innocent women with her. And all three of them get executed, and that's basically how the witch trials
I wonder
started.
what was like if she was having like a mental breakdown for her to do that.
Well, I don't necessarily think it was a mental breakdown. She was of African descent, and I do believe that they have like a witchcraft, a voodoo-esque culture that I don't know too much about, and I
think they talk about it slightly in like American Horror Story as well, because they have like the deep roots in like New Orleans and everything, where they have like the Creole, stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't really know what her like her point of doing it was, but that's what she did, and she started the big craze, and it's probably because white people back then even now, were super fucking racist, and they were like
also really religious, and they're just trying to combine both.
Yeah. So basically people just started accusing everybody of witchcraft because like you don't really have to prove it, and the ways that you would prove that you're not a witch, I mean, you'd probably die in the process of that too. So the really
if they try to drown you and you don't drown, means you're a witch. Yeah. But if you drown, you're not a witch, but you're dead.
Yeah. And then it's like a situation where like a dude would be like walking down the street and then a leaf would like blow out of his way, and then someone would be like, oh my God, he's a witch. He's a warlock. He's a warlock. He's he blew that leaf away.
He's a wizard,
and then
Harry.
He's a wizard. And then he'd go on trial. So in total, like more than 200 people were accused of witchcraft, but at least those were what was reported in the logs, the actual like logs. But only 19 of them were found guilty and executed. I think it was like 14 of them were female and 5 of them were male, which just goes to show they weren't truly sexist, and it wasn't just women.
I do remember one of them specifically, and I'm trying to think if that's the one you're going to cover.
Probably.
So I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to ruin it.
So today I'm going to talk to you about Mr. and Mrs. Corey. Mm-hmm. The Coreys. So Martha Corey was born in 1619 in New England, and according to Wikipedia, because I have to say these dates are really weird, she had her first son at the age of 57 years old.
Jeez.
He was an illegitimate mixed-race boy, which back in the day was a huge no-no. But we're talking about a lady who was 55 years old.
Yeah, she probably did not expect to get pregnant.
Yeah, not a lot really talking about her life before that. It's just one day she had a son. And so she was definitely shunned upon because of that. But luckily for Martha, she was still able to find love. And a few years later, she met a man and had another son at the age of 64 years old, which is just like, man, like women these days are being told that they have to have babies by the time they're like 30, and like their cutoff dates are like when they're 40. And here's Martha Corey over here fucking having kids when she's 64 years old.
For the most part, it's unlikely, but she was a anomaly.
But either way, so I guess that's what you get when you worship Satan. Mm-hmm. Just a really fruitful uterus. Anyway, so her husband dies, and she meets and falls in love with a wealthy farmer named Giles Corey.
How convenient to fall in love with.
With a wealthy, I mean, and he Giles fell in love with her first. To be completely honest, Martha was kind of like, well, I've already done this. I don't really want to have another child in my 70s, and clearly meeting men just makes me pregnant. So Giles was born in 1611 in Northampton, England, and he had moved to the Americas probably in the late 1630s. His name started popping up on like paperwork and stuff like that in the 40s, but they don't actually know when he kind of moved over. So he bought a little piece of land and then built a farm, and then like just basically lived there forever and kept to his own shit. Lived a pretty quiet lifestyle till he got into some trouble with the law for beating one of his farm workers to death.
Oh my God.
Now, he tried to get out of it by saying that because the farm worker was technically an indentured slave, that
it's not a real person.
He should be able to beat him as much as he wants. But the government, or not the government, but the police officer, whoever it is back in those days, was like, yeah, but I mean, you killed him. So they charged him with aggravated battery.
I'm surprised. I thought like it was just kind of, they would just be like, I don't care.
No, well, people made a big stink about this in the town because like it's a Puritan. They're trying to like not have that sort of evil around. And so he was like fined like $30 or something like that. And he wasn't really ever $30 for killing someone. He didn't really kind of recover from that. Like a lot of people still sort of looked at him as like, that guy killed someone, you know what I mean, as they do.
Yeah.
But he become like, he was religious beforehand. He continued that he became a big person in the church. He, after the death of his second wife, he meets Martha, and they fall in love and get married. And the two were just like the cutest little couple. Both of them became like super avid, or Martha started going to the church a lot more. She became super avid in the church. And although the townspeople still like look down on them for like their shady past and stuff like that, as they do, for the most part, like they were well respected in society. In the community. So when the witch trials started, Martha was very, very against the witch trials. She didn't believe that witches existed. She basically was just like, these girls are acting out, or there's something else going on here. And she would go into town and call up people for basically like partaking in what she looked at was just pure trash. Even as far as calling out like other judges, the judges that were on the cases, and being like, "You're murdering these girls. Like you're murdering these people."
She's not wrong.
Yeah. Like she believed that the girls were lying, and she couldn't believe that these like grown ass men were like were believing it, like, and falling for the lies. So when the town would like hold meetings to discuss it, she would try to stop getting her husband to go to these meetings because she was like, I don't want you to partake in any of this. Well, the townspeople looked at it where that she's a witch. And
she was manipulating her husband.
She was manipulating her husband.
Yeah.
So the town started questioning her because, like, why was she trying to stop the witch trials unless she was actually working with the witches?
Yeah, prevent murder.
And so, like, one day after proclaiming in the town that the trials were wrong and there weren't any witches, these two young girls, Ann Putnam and Mercy Lewis, accused Martha of being a witch herself. And when the police show up to arrest her, she's, like, waiting by the door and is basically like, so you heard I'm a witch.
Mm-hmm.
And she's rolling her eyes and she's being really sassy. And like the police officers like noted that like she was just being really sarcastic and she wasn't answering their questions really well. And
what's the point?
And it's just like, that's not, she really just didn't believe the hysteria was going to get to the point that it did. And she really didn't believe that they were going
kill her
to believe that she was a witch.
Yeah.
Because she's like, this is insane. It's a 72-year-old woman who has spent like so much of her life devout to God.
Yep.
And they're like, oh no, she's a witch. So,
well, if they are like, well, she might not be a witch, and they might have to admit that all those girls they killed might also not be witches.
Yes.
The slippery slope there, you know?
Well, that's the thing. But at this point, like, they had only killed, they've only killed, not that it's a small number, but they had only executed probably about five people at this point.
Yeah, that's
it's still relatively lower on the scale compared to
the end result of what happens.
So she gets arrested, taken into custody, and during the trial, she's like questioned on like, did she possess these girls or attack these girls? And she's like, no. And they were like, how did you know that we were coming for you? And she was like, my husband told me. And then the police officers or the prosecutors turned to her husband and was like, did you say this to her? And her husband's like, no, I didn't tell her anything. Because Giles had been all caught up and believed that his wife was also a witch. But it was just like, you're a fucking idiot, Giles. And possibly,
does he not know what happens to witches?
Yes. Well, he does know. But I think it was like one of those situations where, like, because so many people were saying to him, like, your wife is like a witch sympathizer because she took your saddle from the horse and wouldn't let you come into town, and she was doing this, and he fell for it, which that's on him. He pays for that later. But basically, like, Martha gets sold out by her own husband in court. And I don't know if it was like a fear thing because like maybe like he didn't want to die. Like they would.
That's true. Yeah.
Like that they would accuse him of also being a witch, but whatever. We don't really know why he lied. So Martha is just like, she's expecting everybody to just realize that these accusations are fake. And that they would believe her. And she's just sitting up there like, you can't believe these girls. They are liars. These are hysterical rantings of bored, frightened children. But it's just like, Martha, these people have already killed people. Like, those people also sit on the stand and
thinking to themselves, there's no way.
I'm not a witch. You're not going to kill me. Why would you think? But because she's 72 years old. She's not like a younger woman.
And, and for like during that time to live to 72 was probably very impressive.
Yeah.
So they weren't washing hands back then.
No, they most definitely were not. So Anne and Mercy must have put on like an Oscar award winning performance, or maybe just a Razzie Award or something, but in the courtroom. And surprise, surprise, the jury finds Martha guilty.
Yep.
Because she couldn't explain how she knew that the police officers were coming, and why she asked the police officers what clothing that the little girls, because I guess the little girls had said that they had blinded her and they didn't know what her nightgown was, because they were saying the way that they would accuse people before they would be able to specify what they were wearing, and when they like came to them, their spirit came to them, so then they'd be like, go to that house and they'd be wearing those clothes, and then they'd be like, well, you're guilty because the girl said that you were wearing brown pants.
But I mean, she could have just seen her.
Well, the girls had said that her spirit had blinded them, so she didn't know what she was wearing. Mm-hmm. But when the police showed up and she was like, "Oh, did you hear? You heard I'm a witch?" She had said, "What clothes? What did they say I was wearing?" And
maybe she knew what kind of questions were.
Well, that's what I had actually read a little bit of the court transcript, which I thought was so cool that they had from the 1690s. Mm-hmm. But she was saying like she had asked that question because in the previous accusations they had specified what clothing, so she had already known that.
Yeah,
and so she's basically. But because she said that her husband had told her, and then her husband had said that he didn't, and she wasn't giving an answer that was good enough, they found her guilty. Mm-hmm. So because she was a respected member of the church, it basically like shocked ripples through the whole city, because it was like, well, then anybody can be a witch, because our most religious people now dabble in witchcraft. So, and then also people can now accuse anyone that they want. And there was some really there's a lot of political background, like family melodrama that was going on.
So they could,
between the families, which I don't really want to get into because it doesn't matter to the story, in my opinion.
But just means that they can convince their children to be like, that person's a witch.
Yeah. So that they can, ruin the Putnam name or the good name, or ruin the name of the other family and then rise to power. Families do it all the time. So Martha gets convicted and she throws into prison while she's awaiting her execution. During that time, a bunch of people get accused, like I mentioned before, including dear husband Giles, who at this point is like, okay, you know what? Maybe my wife wasn't a witch because I'm definitely not a warlock and they're accusing me of being one.
Yeah.
Maybe I made a mistake. So he gets accused, but he denies it, and the fucked up people in the town decide that they're going to torture him to get the answer that they want, because that's how they do. So back in the olden days, if you didn't plead to a crime, so if you didn't specify that you're not guilty or innocent, they couldn't try you for the crime. And he refused to plead. And basically what they would do back in the day to get people to plead is they would torture them by laying them on the ground and then covering them with rocks or putting stones over top of them. And that's what he was doing because he refused to plead. He was like, I'm not going to say that I'm not a witch, and I'm not going to say that I am. Like, it's completely ridiculous. Like, this, whatever. So I kept saying that he wasn't, whatever. And so they took him down to a dark chamber. They laid him naked on the floor, and then they started putting stones on him. And they left him there for I think they feed him every once in a while, but he survived for 3 days, and every day he kept asking for more and more weight. Mm-hmm. They said that they say that his last words were more weight, but then other people are saying other things. But I think that he wanted to kill himself. I think that he realized that he had killed his wife, and he just wanted to go quicker. And so he eventually died after 3 days of torture, and then 3 days later his wife Martha was executed on September 22nd, 1692, a part of the last round of executions that ever happened, because they after this they stopped doing the hangings. A lot of people were still accused, but they slowly stopped
killing
actually
them?
Executing them. And it was all because of Martha. Kind of a Martha Corey, because she was such a good person, and
there was no way
she shouldn't have died.
Well, a lot of people shouldn't have died.
A lot of people shouldn't have died. I did actually look into some of the causes, what they actually think the causes was. And like, if you were to look at their symptoms and come back now, it was probably like a fungi that like got into like the wheat bread. Or it was like a mild form of like, it was like where LSD originates from. They may have been like eating some of that.
Yeah. Or even shrooms.
Yeah.
Which
like,
is also natural. Yeah.
But
I do remember the story. It was exactly the story I was thinking about. And I was like, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically, a guy doesn't defend his wife and
crushed
she dies. Then he gets crushed to death. And it's really sad. I remember hearing the story when I was younger. So I wanted to do it. And I tried to do as much of it from memory as I could. Just filled in a
good
little bit
job.
Little
well, obviously you're not gonna remember all the dates.
No, so I peppered in some dates, but I didn't really do all that much research.
No, it's
there's
fine.
not much. That's the story.
Unless you wanted to do a whole Salem Witch trial, would have taken forever.
I didn't want to. Someone else can do that.
Yes, it's gonna be like a 3-part episode for some people. It's very long.
I just wanted one person a part of the Salem Witch trials, and I chose one of the last ones, and because Giles Corey was the only person that was also murdered during the Salem Witch trials, but not actually found guilty because he never pleaded.
Yes. So, good job.
Good job, Stephanie.
Good job. Thank you for the story.
You're welcome.
I decided to choose a place where I just visited.
Of course,
and
that is
to
totally
make the most sense to me. But I wanted to touch base on the fact that the last story I just did about the burning sun, which is obviously still going on because it just happened in March.
Yeah. Okay. Did they finally? Okay, because I've seen
really
a couple of things.
They're working on a case. Though,
okay.
But yeah.
Because I think I've seen a couple of articles about the guy from the pop group.
Yeah, from Big Bang.
Yeah, I think because the name looked familiar. It's popped up a couple times. But yeah, I was waiting for you to get back to see.
But
if there was
stayed
new.
at the hotel across the street from there because it's at a really it's like a hotel that used to be a Ritz-Carlton. I didn't make the connection until I was having dinner with my uncle, who was like, "Oh, you're right across the street from the burning sun." And I was like, "What?
What? Did you get photos?"
I got a picture of the hotel, but I didn't go in because it's a functioning hotel, and it felt wrong to go inside.
What? No, those are the ones that you do go inside. And you'd be like, I'm a part of history now.
Everyone's so rich there too.
Yeah. So that's probably why
very
I would
out
never.
Of place.
I don't belong here. They would have looked at me.
They'd have been like,
"You're too white to be in here."
No, that's not true. You would have a lot of money if you're white. What are you talking about?
I guess that's true.
Yeah, but this story actually does have a reminiscent of the MV Seoul story, which is like the ship one, not because of what happens, but because of the reactions.
Okay.
Because I was just
because they're blaming the children and say the children should have saved
I
themselves.
was just in Ansan, which is where the school is, like the high school students were from, and like a lot of people in Korea are basically saying that the kids were the stupid ones for not saving themselves, and I'm like,
and so they were like. Here's the thing,
because it's an anniversary right now, and then they have like banners, and it's so sad.
They're celebrating the anniversary by blaming the children.
No, a lot of people are asking the government to do something about it and to make actual changes to make sure that something like this doesn't happen. But a lot of people are just like, "Oh, well, it's the dummies for." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like,
no.
Listening to the I guess like the other side of the conversation actually made me mad. But that's what's going to happen in this one.
I think it's also because, for me, if it wasn't for like the internet, I really wouldn't know an opposing
No, it's very hard to.
Especially when like a massacre. Like I wouldn't know about like, what's that asshole from Alex Jones. Yeah. I wouldn't know about people like Alex Jones because I would never
question
something
children
like that.
dying.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. Like, oh, they faked children dying? I'm like, not even like teenagers, but actual little kid children. Like,
yep.
Oh my God. I just what's wrong with people?
Yeah.
That's my question.
The amount of work that would go into faking something like that.
And it's
what purpose?
What's the point of even?
It's not like they got rid of guns. Like, what's the purpose of faking all of those kids'
I just saw like an ad for a bulletproof hoodie, and it made me sad. The kid came up with that because they didn't
like
want
backpacks and stuff like that.
We shouldn't need it because we shouldn't. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, I'm not saying that schools don't get attacked everywhere else in the world, but it happens way more seldomly than places that have guns. That's just the truth. Yes.
Yeah.
But anyways, this is happening in Taipei, which was the last country I visited before I came home.
I didn't know Taipei was its own country.
Taiwan is its own country. It's like Taipei. People in Taipei is the capital of Taiwan.
Okay.
But Taipei, like Taiwan's like, I think, I'm not really sure about their history, but I know that there's a lot of arguments because China's basically like, no, Taiwan's part of China. And Taiwan's like, no, we're our own independent country. You have to address us. It's a big issue. So we're
like, no, we're independent. We're the North. We stand alone.
Yeah.
No, you're part of the Seven Kingdoms.
No, but it's not that either. If you say it that way, then I'm going to get a lot of hate. Don't do it. It's very, very political.
No, I understand.
So I'm going to say Taiwan is their own country and just leave it at that. So this is very recent. Cheng Chieh, which is probably said wrong, was born April 3rd, 1993. So he's a baby.
Oh, gosh.
Attending school in Taipei.
Okay, so he's born in 93, but when does this happen?
2014.
Okay. Oh, he was just a little baby.
Don't think that way yet. He was very studious, extremely focused on school, and grew up with a very few friends, as you would if you're pretty antisocial. He enjoyed violent video games and liked writing horror stories during his free time. And I wrote that down because it was written in a lot of articles, but it didn't feel any different from other people I knew or even myself.
Here's the thing. They use that to show like, well, this is I'm assuming that he's the bad guy in the story.
Yeah.
So they're probably saying like, oh, he was a bad guy because he played violent video games and like he was already predisposed to violence from these stories that he writes.
I guess you could say that about anything. Like, oh, well, he liked spicy food, so he's basically the devil.
Yeah.
Or something like.
No, it is, but it's just I've since we've started researching all of this stuff, I've really become really critical of what gets included in the story because it's like, why this particular information?
There's other information that they sprinkled in that's more pertaining to what he becomes instead of the violent video games. But it's mentioned a couple of times, and I think it's just because it's an easy thing to blame.
Yeah, it is.
They want to be like, oh, well, when you grew up, you didn't have violent video games. It's like, but you guys still had a violent nature about you back in the day, too. You don't need that.
You grew up in war.
Yeah.
That was your video game. Now we killed people behind a TV screen.
You grew up with lynchings, so
we've learned how to deal with violent behavior. I
feel like if anything, it just gives us because I think there's like a need for people, to see it, and so this is a more practical and safer need.
Now, should it be the way? This is not a video game podcast, but either way, derailed.
So, they talked about like his previous school life, like in elementary school, his more violent nature showed because he had threatened classmates over a small disagreement. Yeah.
Threatened,
like as in saying like, I'll kill you. But I've also seen that in little kids too. So it's not too different. Yeah. But in junior high, Cheng carried a knife for a month looking for a chance to stab his teacher, which feels a little bit more violent than necessary.
Is that something he wrote down one day?
I think this is what he said.
Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe his parents talked about it, but it showed up in an article. He couldn't
find the right time in a month.
Yeah. So he just carried it around with no hopes of. I think he had an imagination of doing it, so he had it with him.
Yeah. It reminds me. It doesn't remind me, but well, it does. It reminds me of Liam Neeson, who recently
the whole thing about the racial thing with the African Americans.
I was looking around for black men so that I could kill one, and it's just like
you understand.
That's such a weird.
I don't even know why he brought it up.
Yeah,
but I mean, maybe it's kind of like a thing like you can have those thoughts and not do anything about it, and then change as a person and not be a shitty person.
Yeah. It's just like, to me, it's like you just walked around with a knife for a month. I mean, that's
in junior high, like when you're 12.
What was wrong with this teacher? Like,
who knows? But in high school, he started blogging about his plans to kill people, and
going down.
Reposting about articles about murder, which blogging about murder. We have a murder podcast. I can't say anything about that last part.
But I mean, there's a difference between
planning the murder was different for sure. I'm not saying that's good.
But you can talk about it, but I guess it depends on how
he's become an author too.
Yeah, it's all about context.
I wonder what Stephen King's
kid is.
I wonder what Stephen King's journals looked like when he was in high school.
Oh God.
Right? So sometimes you can use that stuff for something like a creative outlet and write great books, and then that's it. And sometimes not so much. So anyways, in 2011, he enrolled at Cheng Chieh Institution of Technology for military training, but was expelled after failing half his courses in 2013.
Okay.
So 2 years later.
Now, in Taiwan, is military an enforced, is it an enforced thing where you should become a member of the military?
I don't know. I don't think it is.
Is it hard to get into? Because it's sort of how do you get into it just to fill out?
I know in Korea, men have to serve. No idea with Taiwan.
Okay.
But I know he wanted to do the military training. So for him to fail out.
Because he wanted to be able to professionally kill people.
But he didn't do very well, so it didn't matter.
That's interesting.
So
Cheng would have excelled.
Cheng maybe not so much a studying part.
Yeah.
And maybe he didn't. Yeah. Well, he was apparently a good student, so it was very conflicting. But Cheng transferred to Tung Hai University, where his strange online behavior caught the attention of school officials. He was kind of sporadic and said kind of weird things on Facebook and social media.
Shit got flagged.
But due to a rainstorm, and it rains a lot in Taiwan. I didn't know this, but it's basically very tropical weather. So it's monsoon season there in August to March. It's a lot of rain. But due to the rainstorm, the consultation arranged by the school was postponed for a later date.
Okay.
So on May 21st, 2014, 21-year-old Cheng boarded the Banan line, which is the blue line, of Taipei Metro Station from Son Yat-sen Memorial Hall Station. And I looked this up because we were really close to here. When we stayed in Taipei, we took this train station every single day.
Oh, really? That's
cool.
Not
the blue line, we took the green line, but the blue line was right next to us. And
you probably sat in the same spot as a serial
We probably
killer.
did because we did do the blue line. We took the blue line a couple times, but
breathe in that serial killer air, Angela.
He wasn't a serial killer though.
Yeah, but someone else could have sat on that train seat.
Taiwan actually has a very low crime rate.
Really?
Super low crime rate. You never felt unsafe. If anything, the cockroaches there scared the crap out of me. There was a giant one that we walked by and it tried to follow us, and I freaked. That was the scariest. That was the most scared I'd ever been in Taipei. So cockroach following me. The rest of the time, no one. No, it's so safe. I had you can carry no one's ever gonna try to even steal your purse or anything either. But they have a very low crime rate, and especially very low this kind of crime.
Okay.
So he had purchased 2 fruit knives from a supermarket, and around 4:25 inside the train heading west from between Longshan Temple Station and Jiangxi, I'm not saying any of that right, station in New Taipei, Cheng chased and hacked at passengers with a 30-centimeter fruit knife. So he had sat on that train for 7 stops, and then when he realized that, because that
it was getting to the end.
No. That's the longest out of all the trains in Taipei. Those 5 minutes is the longest amount of time that you could be on any subway.
He knew that he would have 5 uninterrupted minutes where he could do as much
damage as he possibly could
before they would be able to get out of the train car.
Yes, because
going in a different direction that I thought it was going to go in.
Yeah. So before the train could stop at Jiangxi Station, a group of passengers got together and used their umbrellas to distance themselves from Cheng. And they also loudly taunted him to discourage Cheng from hurting any more people.
Yeah.
So when the train reached the next station, a bloodied woman ran out shouting, "A man inside with a knife is attacking people at random. Don't go in." At this point, someone had already a couple of people pressed their emergency. So police officers and metro station people with some passengers were all out, and they subdued Cheng at the station.
Dude, when you said that he showed up with like 2 fruit knives, I was thinking like those little paring.
But 30 centimeters isn't. Yeah, they're
30 centimeters is like almost 3 feet.
Their fruit.
Wait, no, that's inches.
No, that's inches. I mean, it's
that'd be a
I don't think it's like a chef's knife, but it is about like 10
but
inches.
I'm just trying to like, because the fruit is a lot bigger, I think, over there.
The mango, when I was there, was like this big.
Yeah, so I mean, 30 centimeters is a big.
I would say like a chef's knife. Yeah. So,
but I was picturing just a little paring knife, and then when you said 30 centimeters, I was like, "That's not a paring knife."
That's why I said it's the thing, because I was like, it's very confusing.
Yeah, people need to know.
Unfortunately, Cheng did end up murdering 4 people and injured 24 before he was arrested.
Oh my God, 24?
24 people he bloodied up, and 4 people he actually murdered. So the victims were Cheng Han, 26 years old, Su Qingyun, 28. Pan Pichu, 47, and Li Suyuan, 62. While being questioned by police, Cheng showed no remorse and recounted how he wanted to do something big and shocking, like killing on the train since elementary school. Like, he's been talking about this apparently with his friends since elementary school about wanting to kill a lot of people.
Wow, that is...
But I mean...
God, the amount of planning that probably went into this.
But I mean, it doesn't even sound like planning. You just take knives and you start stabbing people.
I know, but on some level, you have to have a little bit of planning
to figure out which stops. Yeah, which one
stops to get on where you're gonna like. That's diabolical to me. If he specifically planned
that specific
to be able to
one.
maximize the amount of time, that's twisted.
So Cheng had no medical record of mental illness, which doesn't mean he doesn't have it. It just means he has no recorded record.
Yeah, it just means that his parents never took him in. And
well,
got him
apparently
treated.
They like some other articles said that the school did take him in and then they did talk to him and they seemed normal. But you know,
he could have just been like a really good psychopath.
Yeah. Like he could have been. He could have just hidden all that away and acted normal.
Yeah.
When needs to. So who knows?
And it could have also been him him writing the stories and playing the video games was probably a good outlet for a while.
And then it just wasn't doing it for him anymore. But he also had no other motives. No, there was no motives.
And it could also be because they questioned him on the writings of his Facebook, where he probably felt like he couldn't do that anymore and needed to find a different release.
Yeah, that could have been it too.
I mean, who knows? Who cares? He's a bad piece of shit.
It didn't seem like he could have really prevented it either, because it's not like you're going to stop people from taking the train if they're buying knives, like fruit knives from a grocery store.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where, like hindsight 2020, while there are a lot of things that kind of showed beforehand. I mean, no one's I would have thought he would have done something at the school. That's what I thought he was going to do.
But then I didn't. You just wouldn't expect that from him, and it was weird. So when asked about why that day, like why he chose that day, Cheng said he originally planned to take the attack after he graduated college, but on May 21st decided that he had no classes that day, so he might as well just do it that day. That was his
because I have nothing to do. Okay,
nothing to do today.
Mind. Then this wasn't a diabolical plan. He was just a piece of shit.
Yeah, he at least knew which one was the longest.
He planned it enough, but like it wasn't a significant day. It was just because I hate Mondays type deal.
He also said he had grown tired of living, and said he found it distressful to live, but because he had no courage to kill himself, he decided to carry out mass murder so he would receive the death penalty. And you know what? Just kill yourself. I know you're not supposed to say that.
That is exactly what you're supposed to say. But if you had to choose between killing yourself or killing other people, kill yourself.
Yeah,
I don't care if you didn't have enough courage. You should not have had enough courage to take the lives of up to 25 other people. Yeah. Because he could have killed all of them.
He could have killed so many more if people weren't. And unfortunately, like the rest of the story is gonna get like it's some of it's good, but some of it's like, what the fuck's wrong with you guys? Yeah. So that's why I brought up the whole boat thing.
Man, they're gonna blame the people for not running out of the train.
Yes, they are.
Oh fuck.
He also stated that he does not admit guilt, feels no regret, wants the death penalty, and said that if his parents were on the train, he would have killed them too. He just didn't care. He wasn't kill whoever was on the train, regardless.
Yeah, he was just
He was
because he probably wanted them to shoot him on the train.
Yeah, and fortunately, guns I think are illegal in Taiwan. So thank God for that. How does that sound?
Yeah, because he definitely would have. I thought it was a little weird that he got a gun or that he got knives instead of guns.
But I think it's.
But then I was like, well, maybe it was like
illegal.
He couldn't like get the permit or something like that.
Yeah.
But saying that it's illegal makes sense. Plus,
I think it's illegal, yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but it's also a really small island, so you can really control that very easily, I think, too. So
it's easier just to get, just easier to get that. It did its job. Yeah. Realistically, the knife was still deadly,
but not as deadly as if he had a gun.
Thank God for that.
Thank God for that. So this is where I got frustrated. So
no.
Kuomintang legislator Cheng Chieh said that it was the passengers' fault as well, since they put themselves in danger by focusing on their smartphones.
No.
Another legislator from the same districts, Lin Te-fu, said the passengers should have pressed the emergency button sooner, and it was the passengers who lacked common sense. Basically, if you were looking at your phone, then he wouldn't have been able to stab you. Like, are you kidding me?
Okay, yeah, that's an outrageous statement to make. No, I don't know when people did actually start hitting the emergency buttons.
I don't know either.
But it also is always
it could just be like maybe he was next to the emergency button. Yeah, it could have been panic.
Yeah, who knows where the buttons are anyways.
But it could have just been straight up panic, and he had waited 30 seconds after they left the station, so you can't really stop in the middle because it isn't like a tunneled area. Yeah. So it just seems so dumb and then be like, well, he wouldn't have been able to stab you if you were looking up, and it's like people fall asleep on the subway.
Possibly maybe the first two people, but then after that, once people started screaming, you're gonna look up from your phones. No one heard screaming and then still was bejeweled.
Yeah, it's like it was like 4 people who died. Yeah, but it could have been way worse if. It just seems so dumb.
That's a bad take.
Yeah. And that's the reason why it reminded me of the whole boat situation. Because it's basically people being like, well, it's your own fault for not watching out for yourself. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to be hyper vigilant 100% of the time, always.
No.
I shouldn't have to.
No.
I know that you're supposed to.
I do know that, but as a whole, I would say that we are less vigilant because we are always in our phones, but not a good enough reason to say that that's why we deserve to die.
And like I said, Taiwan's a very safe country. Yeah, so
that's ridiculous.
You just don't expect it. Yeah. I literally never felt unsafe at any point. It was really weird. Except the cockroach. That cockroach was terrifying.
That cockroach will outlive you.
Oh, probably. So Facebook groups calling for the death penalty popped up, gathering 32,000 likes. But unfortunately, on the flip side, there were Facebook groups that appeared online supporting his actions.
Yeah, but he asked for the death penalty.
I don't understand why they were supporting him. Obviously, the Facebook groups are gone now, but they're in all Chinese
because
anyways.
It's one of those situations where it's like you gotta hop on. People just want to watch the world burn.
Yes. It's like people who support. It's like the Charles Manson, Ted Bundy supporter chasers. You're like, I don't get it.
I don't get it, but I find it whatever.
I find some of the things fascinating of how the brain works for you to think that what you're doing is okay, but I don't think they themselves are fascinating people.
No,
that's the different thing.
No,
just the whole disassociation, that process is just the brain is so fascinating to me, but not what you did. Yeah. So,
I agree.
On May 27th, which is my birthday, Cheng's parents publicly apologized and called for a quick death sentence for Cheng. Just wanted to be over with.
Yeah, everybody does.
Cheng was indicted 4 counts of murder and 22 counts of attempted murder on July 21st. And of course, all court cases, they take forever. He has so many he has to go through.
Because they have to go through and talk about all 22 people, or all 26 people.
But then there's also more things. The Taipei Rapid Transit Corporation sued Cheng for $20.61 million Taiwanese dollars, which is around 900,000 Canadian dollars.
Is that because like people and it sued the transit? Like, it's why did the transit sue him?
Ridership went down. People were too scared to take the transit during that time. Reasonable. And it said they were down by almost 1 million within 10 days of this attack.
Like, that's definitely not the cleaning bill. Like,
that's not the cleaning
bill.
That
is a bad joke. Sorry. I apologize. That was in poor taste.
But Cheng was found guilty of all counts on March 6th, 2015, where he was sentenced to death. You know, all of our birthdays. He was, for some reason, he just knew.
Yeah,
right?
He's pulling our stories together, our lives together.
So on August 7th, Cheng was ordered to pay around 30 million Taiwanese dollars, which is 1.3 million Canadian dollars, to 10 victims in the attack. But I'm not really sure where do you think the money's going to come from. Yeah. But whatever. I think it's just family. You just have to do it. And I don't know if it's
in situations like that, where does the money come?
I don't know if his family has to pay for it because it's like, is it really their fault?
Yeah.
So on January 7th, 2016, Cheng was determined to owe another $61.39 million or 2.66 million Canadian to victims and their families. So finally, on April 22nd, 2016, all previous rulings were upheld, and that was his last freaking hearing.
Yeah.
So many hearings he went through. And his criminal penalties included a total of 144-year imprisonment and 4 death sentences.
Dang.
But the crazy part is the fact that on May 10th, 2016, 18 days later, Justice Minister Luo Yingxie signed the execution order for Cheng at 1700, which is 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock. And Cheng was executed at 2047 on the same day. So he was executed 18 days after his last trial.
When they said they wanted to get it over with quick, they were like the ink wasn't even dry on that contract before they were strapping him into the chair.
He's dead. So he was given general anesthesia before being shot in the heart 3 times.
Fuck, that is not what. Why give him the anesthesia?
Huh?
Why would they give him the anesthesia?
Maybe so he wouldn't feel the shots.
That's weird.
But like, I just thought it was crazy. When I read shots in the heart, I thought maybe it was like a needle and then they inject something.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they shot him in the heart 3 times.
Because they do the anesthesia when they're doing the blood or when they're injecting, which I've always thought was weird. But then they're like, I guess like the same reason why we use clean needles. We should still treat them humanely. But it's like, maybe why would you give them anesthesia to then just take them out back and shoot him? So that he
doesn't have to feel the shots, I guess. So he's asleep and then you shoot him and he's dead.
Dang. Yeah. I mean, he didn't need the anesthesia.
No, but I mean 18 days.
That's pretty quick.
So impressive
for having to. But maybe because it was like 2 years, because they had to wait the 2 years, right, to finally get it, because it started in 2014.
Yeah, and he got. But it's still like his last appeal and everything done.
So great.
You're dead. Like, I've never seen anything like that here. So it's crazy. But that is a 2014 Taipei Metro attack.
I wonder if that's the quickest.
Probably
like,
not. I'm pretty. I mean, technically.
Well, no, because back in the day they used to be
just
like,
go kill you.
You're executed, and then they would just chop off your head right there.
Yeah. It's like
really fascinating. Yes.
I'm not gonna say who because just in case people haven't watched.
Oh my god, I didn't even.
I meant like even season 1. Yeah. I'm not gonna say like who. I'm just saying.
Yeah. A lot of people do get their heads cut off over the last 8
So I'm not gonna say anything else except someone dies.
What a shocker! Someone died in Game of Thrones. All right, guys. Well, that is our episode. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you guys come back next week. You can leave us a comment, or a like, or a review. Or you can email us at peoplekeepdying@gmail.com. And I believe most of our social media is People Keep Dying. We're on everything except Facebook.
We're on Facebook. We're not on Snapchat.
Damn the social media world. All right, guys. We love you so much.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you guys really don't die next week.
Yes. We'll have way longer. I don't know. I can't promise that.
Don't make promises. Don't make promises. Bye.
Bye.